Hey everybody, it's Retro DM Ray. I know this is the first time that you have ever seen my face on my channel. I don't normally present my ugly old gray-headed mug on the channel because I want to make it more about the content than anything else. But as I am driving today on my way around to visit my different locations to minister to work folks that I get privileged to do, I was listening to a particular video earlier this morning. I don't have the link to that. I think it was RBG Gaming. I'm not certain about that. You can try to find it yourself. But he brought up some interesting topics about differences between old school versus new school play. And one of the things I thought of when he was talking is this idea. So when you play a computer RPG, or even when you play like a Switch game or something like that, you have default settings, right? So you can go in and that's where you can turn in story mode or turn on story mode versus God mode, and easy, or difficult or hard or extreme, you know, all those different settings, right? You can set those defaults. When you're playing a game that has rotation of axis, like flying and stuff like that, you can set which controllers do what, like if move forward it dives down or move forward and it pulls up, those kinds of things, right? So think about default setting when it comes to game design for new school versus old school. And here's what I was thinking. Here's the default setting in modern systems, and by that I mean this. I have run and will occasionally run 5th edition D&D for my wife and children. That's what they like, that's what they're used to, and I want to enjoy playing with my wife and kids long into my even more elder years, before my kids get up and get gone and go to college and get jobs and have a life of their own and get families and stuff like that. All right? So I'm gonna game with them in whatever style that they want to do, trying to incorporate as many DM-driven elements from old school as I can along the way to teach them some of those valuable things. I'm gonna run them in Pathfinder 2nd edition. The same reasons for that, right? But again, that's what I'm going to run for them. If I were going to run a game for anyone else, which I really detest even playing online at all, I understand that in today's world that's kind of a default setting in gaming for everybody these days. It seems easy. You can use all kinds of tabletop simulation things, maps and live video maps, and you know, all these other things, and we've used some of those things as well, and they're neat technology, but nothing replaces the fact that you all get around the table together and you share, you know, soda and pretzels, you know, and nachos and stuff like that, and you get all messy fingers rolling your dice, and the beautiful sounds of those math rocks, like Kentucky Rex says, just bouncing around on the table, and just having your pen and your paper and just going crazy together around the table and having fun and having an emergent story, okay? And I say emergent story for a reason. We'll get to that in a minute. But the new modern systems do something by default that the old systems did not do. Now, we did that sometimes when I would run 2nd edition, which I ran from the moment it hit the shelf all the way up until 2000, okay? So I ran that for a long time, a little over 10 years, about 11 years or so. I think it came out in 89, somewhere around in there. And so I ran that for 11 years plus, maybe 12. And so there was a little bit of that in those games. But the default setting for modern systems is this. The default setting is roll initiative. That's it. It's the default setting when you are moving around on the map. You can call it exploring. You can call it exploration mode. Whatever terms you want to use. It's when you're moving around and investigating around on a map and you come upon something, okay? We called it an encounter back in the day. Sometimes it's still called that today. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes in new systems it means a whole lot of a different thing than what it does in old school. Okay? But when you get ready to do an encounter, the default setting in modern systems is roll initiative. That is not the default setting in old school gaming. It's just not. Now, some games boil down to that at times. You know, it's getting to be 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. You've been up all day. You've been gaming for 8 hours already. You're starting to get tired. It's starting to feel kind of a little bit like that, right? So there are times when that was kind of the default thing, okay? Because of those other external issues, all right? But for the most part, it was not roll initiative. It was, all right, what's going on here? We need to get a fuller picture. Okay, next, reaction rolls. Not for us, for the monsters, for the encounter, right? Might be NPCs, might be monsters, okay? And remember, in old school, monsters were monsters and characters were characters. There was a clear dividing line between the two, okay? There was NPCs, which you had with you, or NPCs, which you encountered in a town, okay? But the default encounter was PCs versus monsters. Those monsters could be elves, halflings, dwarves, just as much as they could be goblins, kobolds, bugbears, owlbears, undead, okay? But you had what's going on. I want to get a clearer picture. I want to get a clearer description, so I'm going to ask a bunch of questions, right? I'm going to look at my sheet to look for what is the different types of equipment that I have that can better prepare me for this encounter, right? And then I'm going to go back into it and start to creatively think. First, I'm going to see, can I improve the reaction roll, or do I negatively affect it by my charisma modifier, right? Okay, reaction adjustment from dexterity. If I do have to go to initiative, what is that? How's that going to help me so that I might get away or get a jump on the enemy? Either way, right? You were thinking your way through the entire thing. You were not roll initiative. Who's up to fight first? I think that's because the new systems are designed solely around combat first, everything else second, but ultimately story can trump all. Okay, look at the new modules that are written. They're not railroads, but they're pre-scripted things. We had those in second edition too. They started coming along later on in second edition. I would argue that some of those were even around in first edition D&D in some respects or another. Okay, that's kind of a thing in different writers. But the story, that's where I'm going to explain this. The story emerged from your play. Remember that time when we had that 10-foot pit in that hallway, and it was an angled hallway, and it was slowly starting to fill up with oil, and we had to jump over that pit, and Tom's character, the halfling, fell down in the pit and got impaled on those spikes, and yet the cleric was able to quickly climb down there on his rope, or use his boots of climbing and springing and spring down there, pull him off of that, and cast a quick cure light wound spell and bandage up the wounds, and then pass him up the line, and we got quickly out of that hallway and slammed that door. That was an amazing part of the story. The Dungeon Master did not have any of that planned. The plan was that there was a pit, a slightly declining floor, and the oil starting to fill up. But he didn't plan any of that other stuff. That story emerged throughout play. In old school, that's already pre-scripted. You already know what's going to happen. The characters are already kind of can work their way through that using a particular pattern of skills, skill checks, stat checks, and those kinds of things to overcome those issues. But they're superheroes, so that's not as big a problem. They just need to pull out the right skill, the right feat, the right tool, or the combination of those three, and solve the problem, and then move on. So there are no insurmountable challenges by design. There are just difficult ones, but nothing insurmountable. In old school, there was insurmountable challenges. There were things that you didn't run, you're going to die. Now, when you talk about running, let's talk about that. When you're in real life and you're fighting, unless you're fighting some expert martial artist or something like that, or some guy who's really good with a knife or those kinds of things, it's not too difficult to put a bar stool or a chair or a pole or a wall or somebody else in between you and the bad guy and get away. But no, not in the modern systems, because you have auto-generated attacks of opportunity, right? We had back attacks, well, I would say attacks against you when you tried to turn and run, right? That's fine. Everybody got to do that. That's understandable. But you could just step back and take off in old school. That wasn't a problem. But no, in the new modern school, that costs actions to do that because they put that economy in the game because they had to, because they turn on all these other default settings, and that's what requires that, right? So the design philosophy in the new school is character protective, storyline protective. The design in the old school is, here's the world, how are you going to interact with it? How can you creatively solve your problems and your challenges? There was constant challenges, and in the game, if there were not challenges that seemed somehow or were in fact insurmountable, then it wasn't a game. It was just playing at dice. There was not only encounter reactions, but there were morale. So if you opened up a door and surprised, if you're first level and surprised a room of 8 goblins and there was 4 of you, the default might be they get great reactions and you drink your way out of the room. Or they're immediately hostile and you slam the door. Or you have to start fighting them from the doorway, and part of them get killed fairly quickly. You get a few injuries, but it's minor stuff, and then they go out the other door out of the room because of something called morale. You've beaten them down, you've scared them off, you feel or seem more powerful than they are, so they got to run. And the default wasn't that, okay, just barrel in and go across the room and chase them down and kill them all. But in new modern systems, that's the only way that you level, is if you bear down on them, chase them out of the room, kill them all, so that you can get the XP, and then you can get whatever little treasures might be there, and then go back and search around the room and find the little treasures, and roll search checks and investigate checks and all these other things so that you can find the secret doors and the passages. But you don't really have to tell the dungeon master where you're looking, right? You just can roll those checks and the dungeon master gives you information, right? I'm sorry, that's easy mode. That's easy computer role-playing game mode. I'm sorry, if you don't like that, that's the truth. If you like that style of game and that's the way you like to play, hey, more power to you, have fun at your table. But that's not old school. That's not default old school. I just was listening to his video and I thought, there are so many nuggets on here that are important to talk about that I wanted to post it to the channel today. And more than that, I don't get to post videos very often because I'm so doggone busy and putting in so much windshield time that I just don't get to put together any videos anymore. And I thought it was about time maybe you saw my old mug on the screen for a little bit. And just to see me and hear me at the same time. So I hope you like this video. I hope you give me a thumbs up if you like it. I hope you subscribe, please. I'm on a drive for that right now to get those numbers up. I'd like to bust 1,000. That would be fantastic for me and the family, and I could be able to get some equipment to do some more cool things on the channel. And if you haven't shared the channel around, share it with people that you know, man. And women, share it around, man. Like just let people know that this is some good old school stuff. And we talk about some good stuff on here on this channel. Thanks to Kentucky Rex. I want to say a special thanks to Steve and to Fred and just on and on and on. There's so many great guys that have commented lately. Mage's Musings and just the Dungeon Minister and a whole bunch of people that have just supported me, and Bandits Keep, and just I could continue to go on and on. You guys know who you are. Thank you so much for pushing me out there. Hexed Press, just all those guys continue to help me out here on this channel. I really appreciate it. I love your content, and I'm on there a lot as well. I appreciate you guys. This is just a great community out here. Get to be a part of those other guys as well. Get to be a part of Kentucky Rex and all these other great channels, man. Let's all band together, band of brothers with old school stuff, right? All right, so take care. God bless, and like Gary Gygax says in all those old magazines, which I will get to here again soon, hopefully, prosper and good gaming. Later.